talk about today. Welcome, everybody. This is Dead Feature Rant. I am your host, Legendary Neurotoxin. This is an H1Z1 broadcast, and today we're going to be talking about the role of players and communities supporting H1Z1. Now, there are a lot of people very, very, very interested in H1Z1. Hi there, Palance, ZK, Paramus. Hello, everybody. There's a lot of people that want to play this game. The numbers are apparent. Just in any live broadcast for H1Z1, there are amazing numbers of people showing up, and it's fantastic because that shows we've already got a gigantic community, basically like zombies, scraping at the walls, waiting for this game to be released and made available. At least in the early access. I'm excited. I'm one of them. Welcome, Ogre Meat, SOE Legion. Hello, how you doing? So, I'm going to be talking about both the role of players and communities in game as well as out of game, and talking about the roles related to how we make the lore happen and play into it and make the game really alive because we're the ones making it live. Along with that, talking about gameplay, how we are actually going to be quite important for figuring out gameplay. Everything that is going to be derived from numbers and metrics from people playing the game, that's us. That's us in the early access, doing things, taking actions that the developers can then see and plan accordingly based upon. Feeling the urge to be frightened. Lovely. And above all, I would say one of the biggest things is both in-game and out-of-game feedback is going to be one of the most important things. SOE Legion, community manager on H1Z1. Ah, that's right. I remember seeing that. You've joined the game. Yeah, let me... There we go. Did I mess that one up? Thanks, Feminator. Awesome. Yeah. Plank. No, today there's no gameplay that I have that I can demonstrate, unfortunately, as it is currently in it is not ready for early access yet, so pretty sure it is, and if it's not, I can always handle it later. But no, I'm pretty sure I've seen that name around. I'm pretty sure I know who that is. Anyways, so like I said, we have a lot to talk about here. So first off, I'm really going to talk about just in game what's really the point of us players in the game. I had a great discussion with fellow member of the community here, Diggs, DYGZ. He might even pop in here today if he isn't already. He had a very good point to make about the concept that if there's not really any progression with our characters, if they have the same skills when they start as when they die, there's maybe not going to be as much incentive for people to focus on a story for their characters. And while I understand where he's coming from with that, on the other hand, I feel like that's where the beauty of this game is. The idea that we are survivors trying to actually survive in the world and make a place for ourselves, part of it, the lore kind of writes itself along the way. It's the things that we do, it's the actions we take that define our character. Maybe your character's story is that they, came to this region, they kind of found their way there, and within 5 minutes they got eaten by a wolf. Well, maybe not the most heroic story, but that was definitely the story of that person. Move on to the next life and go from there. I feel like the stuff that's going on right now out of game, the survivor stories that's leveraging off of the broadcast, the radio broadcast, 2 hours with Double D Kennedy. That was actually, it was a great way to really get everybody involved and give people an incentive for how they want to design their character, an incentive for how they model what their character has done up to that point in the game, so when they actually continue playing and roleplay. Yes, Survivor Radio, thank you. When they actually get into the game, they can begin role playing this character that is already known to the community, is already established, and even though you're just going to start with the same, I don't know, hatchet, water bottle, and can of beats that everybody else is going to start with, the difference is your name and your past deeds are something that people will know. It might not matter. It might not matter amongst the people that you end up interacting with, or at the same time, it could be it could be something where there's just a great deal of community synergy that comes from it. That on day one, we have a lot of people trying to help each other out, just because you are so and so, and you've heard about this other person from their both of you, if you've done a follow up to Survivor Radio. Talking about character progression, think about both storyline skills and political power. Yeah, that's exactly right, Feminator. I mean, the character itself isn't going to get any more powerful. In fact, they actually get weaker as the game goes on. You start at your absolute most powerful physical level when the game begins. At least right now, you start with full health, you start with full food, full water, full stamina. You're not tired at all, you don't have to poop or anything. You start off in great shape, and it only goes downhill from there. Any wounds you get, those are going to stick around for a while, it seems. They're not just going to go away with a quick little patch. Likewise, I don't know if there's going to be eventually any sort of wounding or scarring that'll be identifiable, but that sort of thing would definitely stick with a character. If a character loses an eye and your screen actually has limited visibility, or things that involve depth perception are hindered for your character, that's definitely something that could happen here. So in terms of going back to where players are kind of supporting the game through lore, is that it's the story of survivors, and if you do get wounded, it kind of gives you that, some people see it, there's a choice that either you can try to kill off the character and come back with a fresh start, or that's someone who's just playing the game as the game itself without really any social implications. Or there's more the idea that, well, this has put some extra challenge, my character's got a limp now, or they've got one eye, or maybe both, but they're still going to keep on surviving, they're still going to keep on doing their thing, and I've just gotta work through it and persevere. So that's the sort of stuff that's really going to create dynamic characters, inside the game itself. You'll have that one-eyed guy with a limp, but you know that he's got a posse of people that he goes hunting with. Or you see somebody who you think is at a disadvantage, you come trying to attack them as a bandit, well, they end up being better armed than you, even though they look like they're in terrible shape. So there's a lot of a lot of ways that that can then have reverberations throughout the game if somebody actually comes to prominence in the world with those kind of identifying features. Um, or it could be something where everybody starts, manually doing something that causes them to lose an eye because everyone wants to be that the one-eyed bandit or whatever out on the road, and try to take on that likeness for themselves. So, anyhow, it's kind of the idea that we play out the character's story, and that it's not just an individual player at this point. The events have been going on long enough. It's not 15 years like it had originally been said, but weeks to months since the outbreak happened. And the idea that people already would be coming into the game with associations with other people, maybe even being able to create characters and spawn as a group together, when everybody's ready to get going, it's definitely something I could see, because there's a lot of people that aren't really going to be playing the game. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of people playing the game solo, don't get me wrong, but there are going to be a lot of people that either aren't looking to play the game solo and will be looking to join groups out there, or they'll already be coming in with a group of people and they'll be looking to work together and advance as a group. So this is kind of more talking about the community, and just still keeping it to lore for the moment, how that's really going to be a thing, how that's really going to apply. I've already seen a lot of people that have said, oh yeah, me and my group, we're all going to be bandits, we're all just going to be going around murdering people, eating, cannibalizing as we can. I've heard a lot of people do it, saying they really like the idea of the runners, just go from place to place, looting everything and trying to make things better for everyone. All the groups that they talked about in Survivor Radio, the caravan, that was another one. The outpost, the super secure outpost, that was these are all things that we've already seen the players are going to be doing, and players I'm sure are going to be doing way more dynamic things than this as well. Depending, especially if we get advanced systems, like maybe we can have tunnels and burrowing and actually have an underground network between two locations that they'll actually remain secure, or if one actually gets attacked, maybe the zombies and stuff can actually make it through the tunnels to the other one. Hey, a pound sign. So there's definitely a lot of variation on what groups are going to be able to bring. Once again, just in the context of lore, because at this point, before the game's even been released, we can already start writing the stories for our groups, where they came from, how they came about, and use that for recruiting. Use it for recruiting both in game as well as in our current state before the game. So that's going to be a really big deal, and it's going to be these groups that form around H1Z1 that are going to be some of the core groups that we'll see 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, still being a big part of the game and having carved out their place. People may die every now and then. Hell, they might all get wiped out at some point by some terrible tragedy, but survivors are tough. They'll rebuild. They'll come back and rebuild, or build again somewhere else. But the idea of having a large group of players, or even a small group of players, that already have carved out their idea, what they're going to do in the world, what their I guess their motivations, their intentions, their political perspective, because the game could get really, really dirty and really nasty. Real world fascism and bigotry could definitely be something we see players take on in a role playing sense. And while it would be role playing in that context, it would still be a very touchy subject, and it would potentially be the sort of thing that would create distinct villains in the game world. Likewise, people might be trying to establish a new government, basically saying, well, the United States is done. We gotta start over from scratch now, and this is where it starts. Thanks for the follow, Arc87. And that's something where we could really be a major force in whatever server we pick. Whatever, I'm not sure what the selection system's going to be, but if we can join a you know join one specific server that we know has a mail system set up, that people have actually gone out of their way to set up a full-on postage system and establishments of government and stuff. That's something that would be huge for the game. It would be, even if it's just one isolated place where that happens, it would be a really interesting case study in what players are able to do and what's possible in the game. Literally camouflage your base up in the trees and stuff. Yeah. Camouflage for who? I don't know how well camouflage really works on the Zeds, on the zombies out there, on the infected. I don't know how much they really care about two different shades of green together if they sense things on smell, thermal, and movement. Huh. Now, that's going back to the other things that I was saying earlier. I've kind of transitioned from lore into gameplay a little bit here. So let's kind of talk about in game, the gameplay that players can actually be doing that's really going to be able to support H1Z1 itself. So it's like we've said, or like I had said, and a lot of it really is kind of leveraging off of the lore, the idea of whether you want to keep a character alive or kill them off and try again. Or they might be able to climb trees. We don't know. So that's, I feel like, is going to be one thing, is as players trying to communicate a way, or I guess find a way for traps all around, huh? I guess once again, as players find a way that as we're playing the game, we can kind of take notes on what works, why we're motivated to do things for certain reasons, and then kind of be able to provide that as feedback. But as we're playing, I feel like everybody, if it isn't already built into the game, everybody is probably going to need to be having a notepad handy, because all the people you meet, their names, maybe even their likeness, locations, and all of that sort of stuff, that's going to be a really big deal for the game. Let's see. Arc. So pretty cool. Looking out from watchtower, seeing smoke through binoculars. Can we not see house base? Looking like, oh no. Yeah. Board with a nail in it. Yeah. Now a notepad or a journal. I've seen games with an auto logging system, but I feel like that might be a little bit too, I guess, easy mode for the context of H1Z1. But instead, for players to be actually having to remember to take all of those notes, and actually remember some way to get back to key locations. And then that's something, if it's actually something we'll have in game as a physical item, if there's going to be some bonus for writing on your in-game journal, maybe you get achievements or unlocks or something. The more you record meaningful events in there, it could be something that another player could potentially collect off of you later. So that's one way that the just player interactions in general can end up kind of opening up the opportunity for almost quest-like events where you'll find the journal of this person who had died, and you can kind of go back through like their last interactions. You might be able to find where their previous home or some of their stashes were at. Or it could be this sort of thing, once again, players maybe just want to keep on their own desk in the real world and not do in-game, to make sure that they don't have those sorts of things, and just say, whatever to the extra bonuses they could get for recording to a notebook or journal. Love the adult approach they're taking in this game. Weeds out a lot of the kids from the get-go. Absolutely, that's definitely right, and they're definitely coming at it from um, a prepare to die a horrible death many times kind of perspective. That this is not a fun world. It's survival isn't going to be easy. Survival is a challenge. When it rains, it's going to make things way more difficult. When there's wildfires around, it's going to make things more difficult. Never underestimate the ability of the internet to ruin a good thing. Well, yeah, and it's really going to be players kind of moderating players and you know trying to help make sure that we encourage the good elements in the game and the positive stuff, even if it's not stuff that we necessarily appreciate, and being able to try to weed out some of the negative elements, the things that really are just toxic to the game, or helping people understand that those things are toxic, and being able to have people learn and progress from you know whatever issues they have with the game that are preventing them from being able to enjoy it, or at least provide creative or constructive rather criticism on it. But anyway, a journal is just one idea, and that's even if we don't ever actually have an in-game journal, still the idea of players taking notes on what they do, that can actually be really good for people compiling just a journal of, or I guess an anthology of all their characters' journals, and having that as something either they publish or make available to SOE to publish or something. Once again, being a way that players can, not just in the lore but in the actual gameplay, influence the rest of the game world and the gameplay experience for everybody through their previous interactions. And that's kind of that gives people stuff to do both in game and out of game. Now, there's not as much, I guess, stuff that can be done gameplay related out of game, other than stuff that requires us to record stuff in game. As far as I know, we're not really going to have an augmented reality app that gives us some other way to interact with the game. But we are going to be able to watch other people broadcast, from what I understand, and maybe SOE Legion, if he's still in chat here, can confirm it for us. I believe the early access is intended to be a broadcast-friendly product, so we'll actually be able to stream the game. So even if you're not able to play the game, we'll still have other players broadcasting and examining the game and providing feedback that we'll be able to leverage to learn more about the game itself. Yeah, no, we aren't going to have, I don't know how much gibs we're actually going to have. We might, if we're going to have any sort of body destruction and dismemberment, it's probably, from what I understand, going to be something just representative of the damage being done, especially to make sure that the game translates well to all the different countries, like Germany, Australia, and China, all have various rules on how violent you can get with someone, what kind of gore you can actually show, and how close to a living human you can represent someone as being, before it's just a human murdering simulator. I think that was Australia that has those rules. So it's going to be interesting to see what level of gore they do put in the game. There's going to have to be some amount of body damage actually showing, but Ark, if you've got a link, please do post it. I would definitely love to review that later. Oh, I see you're talking to Mr. Pound Sign there. No, we have a lot of, yeah, we have a lot of information coming from a lot of multiple sources. It's constantly changing, but there's a lot of people keeping up to date on the things as they change. Like initially, um, it was the outbreak happened 15 years before when we enter the game, and they've since changed it to um, like weeks to months. So a lot of the things that we saw in the earlier design, like seeing a bunch of rusted out cars piled up in an intersection in an kind of semi-urban area, it's not going to make any sense anymore because weeks to months afterward, the not even the harshest weather is going to make a bunch of modern cars rusted out. Yeah, the Reddit page is really the best. I've asked Smedley about this, and he says he loves Reddit. He prefers Reddit. It's just, he likes it more than a regular forum. So expect to see a lot of H1Z1 stuff going on Reddit. Um, this, I would say, of all the projects, and this is getting off the subject a little bit, I would say of all the projects, I would say John Smedley's had the most involvement with this that I have ever seen. He got pretty involved with PlanetSide 2 for sure, but I feel like H1Z1, he's kind of like the guy running the project, it feels like. Um, yeah. Yes, definitely follow H1Z. Damn it, it didn't take that mod, huh? Alright. Hmm. Hmm. Alright, continuing along here. Yeah, absolutely, Ark. I mean, I actually got to play it at the well, I mean, you guys know I'm the H1Z1 yelling guy, but being able to play it the very early demo that we had at the SOE event, it's pretty smooth already because they were leveraging off of a lot of the stuff for PlanetSide 2. Um, it's really really nice. I'm looking forward to. Actually, I'm looking forward to it for both games. The synergy of the development teams back and forth between them. Um, yeah, yeah, it's gonna be it'll be great for both projects. We've already seen, from what I understand, the I feel like it's at least coming from H1Z1. The flash and harasser mechanics in PlanetSide 2 were adjusted, and I feel like they were adjusted using some of the mechanics that were probably implemented for the Jeeps and other vehicles in H1Z1 to make them less flippable and Clegg friendly, more Clegg friendly, I should say. Um, of course, you'll still get run over in live streams with it. um, anyway, so yeah, going back to what I was talking about, that live streams, and once again, SOE Legion. I don't remember if you had mentioned about that. Live streams are going to be somewhere that players are really going to be able to interface with the community, and be able to see gameplay from other people, see what successful players do, see what players who maybe aren't successful but have a good time anyway are doing, and be able to figure out, allow players to figure out for themselves what they want to do in H1Z1 and how they want to enjoy the experience. Um, so that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And you're right, Xload. Player Studio is going to be really awesome. what it already is for PlanetSide 2 is amazing, and opening up the doors for that for not just Landmark but also H1Z1, because they're both going to be amazing projects that are really going to be able to utilize Player Studio. I'm really excited for it. And I mean, there's already an amazing art team at SOE that's making a lot of awesome stuff, but they've admitted, there's only so much they could make compared to what the players, the uncounted millions of us can actually produce in, the same amount of time. Especially because we aren't under any specific deadline to get anything done, except if someone's trying to make holiday content. And I'm sure there's going to be holiday content. I'm sure that'll be one of the really interesting things in H1Z1 is seeing how people celebrate holidays and what holidays people actually celebrate and what new holidays actually come out of it. That should be really interesting. That's both kind of in-game and out-of-game sort of stuff. Awesome. Thanks for popping through here, Legion. I will send you a link for the rest of the show here once it's all done. Once I go through all of the stuff I have to talk about here, I'm probably going to open it up to a Q&A and get some community discussion going on here, so it should be pretty good. Welcome back, Slathar. So, feedback is going to be one of the biggest things, though, in how players and communities are going to support H1Z1. I mean, players individually doing stuff to support the game, writing their own content, writing their own lore, writing their own backstories, suggestions for stuff. That's going to be great. Both, in-game and out-of-game. That's going to be great for the lore, and it's going to be great for the gameplay. And communities as well. They're going to be websites. There's going to be, Steam groups and, groups of players that already play. Thanks for the follow. Already played Daisy and all. There's actually a lot of Survivor games out there these days. Waiting to smack someone with the burned turkey leg. Yes, 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 yes. Oh man. Actually, I'm more excited to get some of those holiday items and then use them the entire rest of the year when they totally don't make sense. Because to me, that's the funniest. Is why you're getting, if you're being killed by a candy cane decorated crowbar in June. It to me is really hilarious because it actually seems more like this person, the only thing they could find to beat you to death with was this holiday themed crowbar that they found that's been sitting somewhere for however long waiting to be used. So a lot of that holiday content I could see really being funny and having a lot of year-round uses in the game. That's true, Ark. And I think that's one of the reasons why H1Z1 has come about in such a powerful way is that people see SOE is no indie studio. SOE is a full AAA that's job is to finish the games they start and launch them and have them run successfully for a year. Except Bullet Run and maybe Wizardry, but whatever. So it's I'm sure DayZ is going to be a great game when they finish it, but for the here and now we have a AAA developer that's already got an awesome engine that's capable of things way above and beyond what most engines are even possible or capable of doing. And it's going to be built upon to create a new type of zombie survival game. And it's also going to be using a new type of AI system that really hasn't been used for the most part anywhere else. At least certainly for anything like this. I don't know if there's actually going to be like intelligent NPCs or not, like actual humans as NPCs or not. But just the rest of the AI of everything in the world is going to be amazing. The flashlight shining through walls can't be fixed, Rocket said it himself. Huh. Brutal. Yeah. And this is going to be, some of the biggest, one of, if not the biggest survival game ever made up to this point. Not necessarily the size, like the size of the world of the game. Um, but just the scope and scale, the number of players that are going to be pouring in, even in the early access, especially in the early access, people are going to be clamoring for that. Any sort of goodies that they're going to give us, people are just going to throw down that $20 just to have that, even if they're never going to play the game. When a dev says can't, just means it doesn't have the test. Yeah, that's true, Slathar. I can understand though where maybe the way they've designed the engine has pigeonholed things in such a way that things really have to be completely rebuilt from scratch to fix that one thing, and that's not an excuse. I definitely agree that's not an excuse, but there might be other things that need to be worked on first, so that way they can have the funding and the guarantee to be able to continue on and fix some of those other things like flashlights and walls. And I'm sure with the early access package, H1Z1 is gonna pay out big time. Like their SOE is probably getting a huge cash boost for it. Yeah, but that's the thing, Slathar. Being able to have a wall occlude a flashlight is something that's been able to be done since like ASCII days, like ASCII art. So, if it can be done on DOS, it can be done in this modern age. It's not necessarily a limitation so much as the engine was built in this way, and to get around it, we're going to need to commit this amount of resources and time. It's a tough decision to have to make for sure. But even with that, I mean, DayZ has had a really successful run, and there's still a lot of people who really just love the hell out of it and play it regularly. There's still a lot of big communities on it. So even with its limitations and its issues, it's still been able to do great. And we know it's not a complete game. We know it's not a finished, polished game. I mean, once again, this is something that it was originally a mod. It wasn't even its own game to start with. At least that is right with DayZ. That was the one that was was an Arma 2 mod, right? Or am I confusing that with another one? Yeah. Exactly, Slathar. Oh man. So websites are, I'm sure going to be another thing that are going to really help. People posting information, things that help players out, guides on how to identify what type of zombie from another, how to deal with them, techniques. People, I'm sure, are going to do a lot about that sort of stuff, and that's going to do a lot to really not only support the game, but as these guides come out, especially early on in the alpha, we're basically going to be giving the developers feedback and letting them know, hey, this tell is a little bit too easy, or this attack is telegraphed so much that you can pretty much always get out of the way. And they'll be able to accommodate to actually make things as difficult as they're supposed to be. It might be that maybe 1 out of every 10 of the shoulder slumped forward or whatever, the ones that'll run at you, maybe 1 out of 10 of them has some other attribute to it. Maybe it's got some heavier armor on, or more what I'm looking for is not necessarily an equipment sort of thing, but maybe it has a leap that it does, or it'll try to tackle on top of all of that other, the charging at you. So that's the sort of thing that the developers can then be doing, using the players' feedback and the guides we write and the things that say, oh, this thing is easy, just deal with it in this way, and break that rule so you can't always just deal with that in that way. Oops. Moving on to number 2. All right. So, feedback is one of the biggest things that players are going to be able to do to really contribute to the game. Replace the renderer, then conduct an analysis. That's brutal. I, I, I don't envy that situation one bit. That's so tough. Ugh. Thanks, M. Barnett. I appreciate it. So, keep in mind, we're going to be coming in an early alpha. This is not the game is ready for, early access alpha. The game is not ready to be launched in 2 or 3 months. The game is ready to go into beta in the next 2 or 3 months. Landmark actually was in alpha for 8 weeks, and it's actually now in beta. This is the 9th week of beta, and it's still unclosed, and we still have no idea when it's going to be open beta. It might be closer to the 16-week mark. So, looking at that time frame for H1Z1, if it is going to take that long to really have it launch with the live release, it's what, 69, 9 weeks and 24. So, we'd be seeing it maybe in December to be going into open beta at the very earliest. Just me pulling numbers off the top of my head. Here's whoop. Yeah, Daisy like going through walls. I know what you were talking about. That's just not a fun situation. Well, Slathar, I'm sure there's going to be ways to win the an early access code, or it'll eventually, once it does get into beta, you'll be able to apply and be one of the weekly people that they allow in just through the applications. So that's definitely an option. Early access should only be about $20 though, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'm sure somebody even be able to help cover you for it. But coming in this early, it's really important for everyone to stay really constructive with the feedback, in game and out of game, especially mostly out of game. Well, actually, I can't really say more one or the other, because people in the game trying to enjoy it, but just focusing on the features that they're not enjoying, or features that aren't fully implemented that are causing them issues. That can have an impact to the other players that you're playing with. It's like, man, I didn't even realize this thing was a problem until you pointed it out. Yes, Gaming Sean TV. We don't know what's going to be coming with the early access package, but we know it's going to be coming with something. Something. So, in game itself, how much players are going to be interacting with one another, it's going to influence the community, in the game and out of the game, especially if it's either a respected member of the community, or a character that's well known that's saying, this and that about SOE, and them needing to get their stuff together or whatever. I mean, that stuff, it does carry on, and it does affect the game in kind of odd ways. So it's really best, just as best as possible, for everyone to stay constructive, giving feedback about the game. I mean, we know it's not a finished game. We know they've got a lot of features to go, and that's fine. It's gonna be a long process. Thanks. I'll definitely check that link later, Ogre Meat. I really appreciate that. Hi, Marilali. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Um, so I guess the other thing though is that understand, it is a work in progress. There's going to be a long time to go with this, and like I said, people are going to kind of get burnt out. People are going to leave and come back, and that's totally fine. It's going to be a long period of time. If people leave, come back in a month or whatever to see what's changed, that's totally chill. And it's not like they're losing power or anything. Their character's going to be any weaker after that month. Characters, once again, they don't get any stronger or weaker. There's not going to be really any progression, unless progression is somehow implemented in that 1 month of time, and then maybe they will feel like they missed something. I'm sure that'll all be reset at some point, or maybe it'll be arbitrary. Um, it The other thing though, and this is something, I'm a developer of games as well, an indie developer, but a developer nonetheless, and I've worked in AAA studios. You've got to understand, the team already has a great idea in their mind of what the game is going to be, what they want it to be, what it should be. They all, I'm sure, have an idea of what H1Z1 is, and maybe it isn't all necessarily Smedley's idea of it, but it's everybody working together and communicating on the subject. That's really how you get to consensus on what features go in, what content goes in, what's available for the players. They don't need us. They need us for helping to advertise the game. They need us for providing a giant testing base. They need us to provide ideas to help cut through the potential echo chamber if they all agree on a lot of subjects, and to help provide perspective on things that they may not have thought about. But they could work in a vacuum. If things needed to be done that way, they could still be doing completely closed doors, hush hush. Nobody knows about H1Z1. To know the name of it would be to break an NDA sort of thing. So they do and they don't need us, but they definitely already have a great idea in their head of what the game is and what it's going to be and how it's going to work and how it's going to function, and they're including us in that process. They're being gracious to include us because they want this to be a game that we're going to enjoy and that we're going to play and that we're going to want to feel like we have a sense of investment and ownership in. So it's people might say, oh, the dev should do this because of this, or the dev should do that because of that, and there might be someone on the team who agrees, but it might be the general consensus of the team that no, those things might be too resource intensive, or they might detract from the game. They might not match the aesthetic of the game, might not match the lore. It might just be awkward and be one of those weird things that it doesn't harm the game, but it still maybe makes it less enjoyable for people somehow. Because this game could easily be turned into a zombie massacre arena shooter, and I'm sure it'd be hilarious fun. And it might even have the same kind of sustainability of a zombie survival game. But it's not what they're looking to do, and it's not what we're looking to see them make with the game. And I can't communicate it more. Like Smedley, he's truly a veteran when it comes to the game industry. We've got a lot of amazing people that work on that. Like Clegg's been doing level design for a little while. He's been on, he was on what, PlanetSide 4 team, or PlanetSide 2 team rather, for 4 years. He was on the we had Jimmy, who was also on the team. He came in from what he was doing to a senior game designer role, if I'm not mistaken. He's been doing a great job. But those are just a couple of the people that we see a lot of. There's so many people on that project. The combined years of experience, not just making games, but also consuming zombie-related content and just general real-world content, survival skills, close combat, and ranged combat. I'm sure a lot of them have military ex-mil, or otherwise just gun folks in general. Um, so for the community as a whole to be coming through and saying they need to do this, that, or the other, they'll probably listen to that if it's something that really flies in the face of what they're planning to do a lot sooner than one person going, the community or the developers need to do this, that, or the other, especially if it's something that really, like I said, flies in the face of what they're trying to do and really doesn't isn't congruent with the overall scope and scale of the game and the design they have. I could keep throwing ideas at them for ways that they could add progression in a way that it kind of does matter and it kind of doesn't matter, where you kind of want to keep your character alive and work through sustained injuries rather than kill them off and start over. But at the same time, the idea of and I refer to it jokingly as the James Bond MacGyver aspect of it, where everybody can do everything, operate anything, build anything. They decided to do that because they don't want players to create their characters in such a way that it pigeonholes them and makes them regret the decisions they've made, to the point where they do just go get their character killed. It's two different perspectives on it, and I actually had a great conversation at the SOE event about it. So I really understand kind of where they're coming from on the subject. It's not meant that we're supposed to be necessarily these super badass characters or whatever, that the only people that survived were also super smart and super fit and super capable, so much as that they just don't want people to regret that they did a character in a certain way, or even worse, they build up a house with an architect type character and then kill off that character and run back with a really accurate shooter or like a close quarters fighter, and then come back to where they had built something up with more ease, to defend it more easily. It'd be weird, but I really just I'd be really interested in seeing how it could work to have slight variation between characters rather than no variation. They're game designers. They're professionals. They're industry professionals who've been doing this for years. Their combined experience way outnumbers what I have by an order of magnitude, I'm pretty sure. So as much as I might suggest, and it might even be a good idea, at the same time they have an idea for what they want to do with the game, and they're pretty much set on that. They could change their idea at any time. It could be something where more feedback from the community makes them go that way with it, or it could be something where they just continue how they are with it, even if the community kind of resists, kind of sticking to their guns and saying, well, we've kind of designed all of the game systems based on this, and if we alter this, we'll have to alter everything. And that's totally understandable if that is something they would have to do. But with that, it's harassing developers about such and such idea and just spamming in channels to do something. Not only is that really annoying, they're not going to care, they're going to ignore it. They might even not want to do that idea because it's being spammed at them. um, but by contrast, a design document is actually great. Either an individual or a group can work on something like that. But writing up a really good game design document, like a concept document on a specific system for the game, specific feature, specific mechanic, especially when the game's actually in early alpha, or the not early alpha, early access, and we can actually you know speak to the game itself and what we can do with the current interface and interactions with it. Um, so design docs are a great thing. The developers really love them. There are a lot of examples in Landmark of documents people wrote that influenced the design of the game, or we've yet to see even with tree harvesting in Landmark that some of the input from the community has helped them come to their decisions on what they're going to do. Now, obviously, the Landmark team and the H1Z1 teams are teams, but they're going to be receptive to quality design documents in the exact same way. If you've got something good to write and you've got a good way to communicate it, they'll look at it. They'll look at the text and the images and everything. They'll take it in, and if it's a really good idea, they'll either use it the way it is, or they'll find the aspects of it that they like, and they'll try to implement them one way or another into the game itself. So I definitely, I can't stress enough how much like design documents, and it's one of those things where it's really hard to write a quality design document in such a way that you're not being constructive with your criticism, or constructive with the suggestion of what's going to be added to the game. So if someone is worried that they're going to write something that's going to come off as a hate rant to the devs or whatever, that they are really upset about something, converting that idea into a design document can really help to bring everything into perspective, and potentially even help the person with the idea understand why it is or is not viable, but as well being able to communicate to other people, potentially people who have more to say on the subject, and use that to prompt discussion. Because it's not just the developers that are going to be reading these things. In fact, if you just send a mass email to the entire H1Z1 team, if you somehow have all of their email addresses, chances are SOE spam bot's probably going to catch it and eat it. So discussion is one of those things that's really important to getting a concept brought to life, or at least brought to the greater attention of the dev team, so that they can actually act upon it. And it's any size of document, something short, less than 10,000 characters, can be very easy to write and communicate something in a very clear way. Likewise, someone writes something that's over 100,000 characters and has 20 giant images in it, and it's just a really super detailed design spec for, once again, it could be how to chop trees and lumberjacking in H1Z1, or it could be something about the techniques for building arches with wood, and then being able to build upon that with brick or whatever, being able to build build in a piecemeal way. So maybe some of the L-shaped structure that you're building is using the higher quality, like the full stone with the looking holes, versus some of it's using the wire fence with the little corrugated metal roofing on the sides, the different versions. So I mean that's the sort of thing. I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to mix and match between those, because it feels like that's one complete model that we would be trying to manipulate. But I really don't know the level of that kind of detail that we're going to have, and it should be interesting. And that's the sort of thing. Also, design documents are also a great way to have the developers reveal stuff about the game. Um, as they come through and talk about design documents and interact with the players on them, they might end up revealing things about the game system or the game itself that we didn't even know about or even consider. Or they might discuss something that the team might have been at a trying to weigh decision A and decision B, and reading this design document help them either come to A or B, or even find a C alternate that doesn't quite fit either of their previous ideas. Be able to ram a truck into a base, then run everyone over. Not only do I want to be able to do that Xload 3D, but I want the game to actually have the mechanics that allow me to back a vehicle rather into a structure, and have it still drivable afterwards, because the engine's in the front. If you back into stuff, you basically have a battering ram to work with. It's pretty effective. Okay, so design document. I mean, it's a long road to beta. Like I said, Landmark was 8 weeks of alpha, and by my guess, it's going to be at least 16 weeks of closed beta before the open beta. So on a time scale like that, we might be seeing open beta at at the end of the year, the beginning of next year. Battering rams, oh, I'm sure there's going to be not just battering rams, but even more dangerous versions that like it's a battering ram on one side and it's got spinny blades on the other side or something. So you can saw through the zombies behind you while trying to bust down the door to get into this structure. I don't know. I just random stuff. Battering rams. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to design a battering ram. If you've just got something where you've got a car spring loaded in a like a shock absorber or something, and you can rig that up so the spring basically fires out and pushes something that'll knock into the door. That could be really potent. Car springs are freaking powerful. They will take someone's head right off. I could also see, springs being used to make weapons and stuff, and that's stuff that I've talked about on previous episodes. But once again, long road to beta. Long road to closed beta, even, before we even talk about open beta. Closed beta, no idea. I really don't know. I feel like we're probably going to get more details in the time frame for what's going to go on with H1Z1 more around the time of SOE Live. That's when we're probably going to get all of our big announcements. Except, actually, from what I understand, maybe there's going to be some news about it at E3, like when Early Access starts. Early Access, they had said 4 or 5 weeks ago they were hoping to have it in 4 weeks. Here we are now, and Early Access isn't around, but it's no big deal. They've done such a good job of, revealing what's going on with the game and the story, and getting the developers out there, even getting people on doing interviews on different shows every now and then. It's really amazing, and it's it's been a great way to keep everyone amped for the game, even though we know we were kind of expecting early access by this point. We can see that the game's not quite ready yet, and when it is going to be ready, the start of early access is going to be totally awesome. It's going to be really awesome. For whatever reason, I think that it's probably more the UI and network stuff that's or things saving to the server. That's probably going to be more the stuff holding things back right now, and less the actual content of the game, the models and such. Can't really say. The UI was a little on the stiff and wonky side when I tried it at the SOE event, but it could have been worked on quite a bit between then and now. Visual storytelling, blood, gore, various props. So far they've actually done a great job of that stuff, even with what I've seen. I can definitely see the item generation also being something to promote that. Maybe you walk into a house and the drawers next to the bed have a Bible, a pack of condoms, and a 9mm with 2 boxes of ammo. um, that could be something. Or it's you go into a room along with the props and stuff that are already in there. Maybe it'll randomly have a poster or a little clown statue or something. Or something that indicates. Actually, I'd love to see a one of those big creepy clown beds, like a children's bedroom sort of thing. That'd be pretty messed up. I think they're definitely planning for players to be able to really decorate their space in that way, and that should be really fun. It depends on what kind of props we have available and what kind of items from our inventory can be placed in the world versus what things. I guess everything's got to have to be able to be placed in the world. There isn't really anything that we can have in our inventory that couldn't be found somewhere, I suppose. Yeah, writing on walls, definitely that sort of thing. Not just writing the final whatevers, or they're going crazy, or help, or anything like that. But that's actually something they could use to direct players. They could actually be putting coordinates on the sides of walls, and that could be something that they just do. They just one day decide, okay, this is when the event starts, and a bunch of houses suddenly have coordinates in them. And if you follow the coordinates, maybe it goes in like a giant nautilus, and then ends at one specific point where there's a cache of weapons, or some sort of a radio station that previously hadn't been there and was previously not fully inaccessible, but maybe it was really tough to traverse, and most people just weren't able to do anything. They couldn't get the lock off when they got there anyway. They could definitely have fun stuff like that. But the other things to consider with beta, players are going to come and go. There's going to be a lot of people who come in, they play the game religiously, then they burn out and disappear for a while, and it'll happen. Those will be people that we know and love in the community, and those will be people we've never even heard of, but might notice their presence when they're gone, sort of things. But likewise, features are going to keep on changing. It's going to be a long alpha and a long beta. Like we've seen with Landmark, pretty much every system in that game has changed. Just about everything. So, I can expect that sort of thing with H1Z1. Everything can and probably will change over the course of the beta. It's gonna be with the beta and the early access, it's gonna be a really long road to get all the features in, and get everything to the point where it's implemented and that they're happy with it in the context of the full scope and scale of the game. So, I guess on that subject, like I said, 15 years was the previous time frame we were given for when the outbreak happened. Now it's weeks to months. So they've already had to change a whole lot of stuff about the game since then. The rusty cars everywhere, they're going to have to get rid of everything being all rusty and completely dilapidated. They're going to have to change that. Now, not everything was completely rusty and dilapidated. That was actually the really weird contrast when I was playing the early demo in at SOE, is that all the cars and stuff looked all rusted out, but all of the houses looked modern. They looked functional. Some of them, if I remember, maybe even had chimneys going, or maybe that was just some other smoke that I was seeing in the distance and trying to put two and two together in my head. Um, so they've definitely they've gone more towards the idea that not only is it weeks to months since the outbreak, but this idea that everybody just kind of disappeared. That like they said on the Survivor Radio, Slick Rick Jarvis or whatever was saying, um, everything was just abandoned. Doors were just left open. If people were planning to return, you'd expect they'd at least lock the doors behind them. But if the infection was just kind of this chain reaction that all more or less hit at once, yeah, everybody was just evacuating. Nobody was getting any time to seal anything up. Or if they're being evacuated by local police and military and everything. Alright, I see a couple questions here. What's your personal take on the PvP versus PvE debate? Do you think PvEers are actually going to enjoy a server for long enough with so many unknown elements, such as players taking out the... There is no such thing as playing H1Z1 in a context that isn't PvP. In almost any other game, I would say this isn't a competition, this is a collaboration. We're all trying to make each other better, we're all getting better and stronger as we play the game. That's not the case with H1Z1. This is not a collaboration. I mean, in some ways it is, but in many ways it's also a competition. And while you might not feel like you're competing, everyone else is. So even no matter what you're doing, it's gonna be some amount of PvP that you're always gonna have to consider. I don't know how a PvE server would even work. There's so many ways that players can die. Um, the only way a PvE server could work is if there's just no death, and that wouldn't make sense for the context of the game. Uh, yeah, Twitch Floyd H1Z1. It's the zombie game from SOE. They're they're awesome work in progress. They're first starting to share some of the details and stuff around January, and um, in the past little while now, they've really revealed a lot about it. It's pretty cool. Um, Xload. How many essential base? How essential should basements be in H1Z1? They've talked about Ohio a lot. Just last week, my buddy in Ohio was telling me about the tornado going over the town he lives in. He was glad that he's got a basement and that he put all of his possessions down there. That's where he's got his office and his awesome comic books and all of that stuff. He said he was also glad that he actually put down the 120 or the homeowners insurance for basically triple payout if a tornado comes through and takes out his house, because he paid 40K for it and they'd pay out 120K for it. So yeah, the sound of things is that a lot of these events are going on somewhere in the tornado and hurricane regions. They mentioned Ohio a bunch of times. Was it Tennessee that they had mentioned later on in it? So I mean, that's still that region, the kind of eastern half of the United States in general, is an area that more or less has basements. Basements would probably be a really big deal. not just larger, fancier houses, but even smaller houses should probably have them. How reinforced the basement is should also be a thing. It could be just a very simple cement bricks or whatever, cement brick wall, and the shutter doors, or it could be something a lot more a lot more well reinforced, where once you're actually inside, there's a lot of things reinforced with steel. You've got barricades, you've got things that people have designed specifically planning for a zombie apocalypse. Because keep in mind, there's a lot of people living in the real world today who believe a zombie apocalypse will happen, or a revolution, or a fascist uprising, or a different kind of fascist uprising, or whatever. And they've got their basement or whatever. They've got a fortress. They've got weapons. They've got food. They've got water purification systems. They've got everything. They can live out the rest of their lives down there. So we could definitely see basements being a really big part of the game. It might not be something we see as much in the region players initially start, the southern and eastern edge of the map, but as the game goes on, it's definitely something we could see a lot more of. Or as the game spreads out, because that's the plan, is that they're gonna be adding more area to work with. They're going to be basically expanding the size of the game as the game goes on, introducing more regions, the factories and stuff that exist in those regions, and the regional differences will be a really big deal. Flight 69. I actually do not play a lot of DayZ rather. However, I have observed quite a bit of gameplay, and I would say that yes, H1Z1 will definitely be able to fill a lot of the holes that DayZ was not able to fill. Not only because it's something, once again, this is a AAA company. They've got the production pipeline to really be able to take this game start to finish and release a polished live product when they're ready to. But beyond that, all of the games that currently exist, those are all basically feedback and content for SOE to leverage for the development of their own game. They know all the issues going on with DayZ. They know all the issues going on with Rust, and all the different games. I'm sure they play them themselves. So they're definitely looking at all of those things. I'm sure they're looking at all of those things and looking at where there's stuff that's missing, either interactions, content, features, potentially even types of zombies, equipment, survival scenarios that you can set up that aren't available in those games, and really make something that's more polished and more honed than all of the stuff that exists. If it's going to be a better game, it deserves to get played. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure DayZ will be great when they finally finish it, if they finally finish it. It could be kind of the unfortunate thing for them that if H1Z1's ready before they are, they might just be dead in the water. All the zombie survival games might be kind of dead in the water. I'm sure there's a lot of them in development right now. I'm sure SOE is not the only company. They're not a unique snowflake on this one, clearly, because there's already other games that have touched on the genre. But the pressure's on. You've got to be at least as good as H1Z1 to survive in this environment. Otherwise, your game is gonna kind of get drowned out a little bit. Yeah, Flight 96 Survivor Radio was awesome. I took pages of notes. Front, back, and a quarter page. Because got so much, learned so much about the game from that. You know, I know it was just. I can't say it was just lore because it wasn't just lore. This is the game. This is what the game is going to be. Yeah, Flight. It's there's going to be people who take notes and really focus on things, and there's going to be people who just go into it blindly and try to figure it out, and there's going to be people that are zombie feed. And that should be a lot of fun to find them. Whoop. Had to close the hatch there so the zombies don't come through. I'm outside the door right now. So going back to so what other questions do you folks have? Like I said, I played H1Z1 a bit at the SOE event. Listen to Survivor Radio. I didn't really watch the entire level design thing that was going on Tuesday. I had a broadcast going, my Viewer's Choice Tuesdays when that was going. Didn't really want to stop that to tune in, but it was. I did get to see some of the stuff when the L segment buildings were being named, and some of the design process for how that works, and that's going to be really neat, seeing how everything comes together. Even though you can see through a chain link fence, you can't necessarily fire through it effectively, even if you're at point blank, which that's a mechanic that can definitely change later down the road. But seeing the way that it is designed, that they've got the fence, and then if this is the entire size of the fence, there was like the corrugated metal here, here, and here that created a little firing window here, basically. Favorite interview from Survivor Radio? Oh, let's see. Doctor was pretty good. Ridge. I mean, I liked a lot of them for various different reasons. um, I think I all of them, I like Big Reg the most because his made me laugh the most. I really enjoyed his story. Yeah, his story, the getting stuck in the storeroom, and then basically staying in the dark so long they could just about read the labels in almost total darkness, or maybe it was total darkness. Yeah, the short guy with the pants, exactly. Um, just really hilarious. And then the idea that after that event he got to be the pretty much the chef for the caravan. I mean, I think the caravan stuff, just that entire set was really great. I mean, I can't say that any of it wasn't great. It was all great. The stuff with them and the stuff with the runners, I think, was also one of my really favorite segments, because you're actually seeing, and not just from the outside and getting sent the hell away, but you're actually getting to see the survivor groups and what they're doing and how they're doing it, what they've done to adapt, and giving players some ideas of what we may actually be able to do in the game. What we could actually be doing to, not only as survivors, but carving out our place in the world to be something greater than just an individual, but actually have a group or an organization that will persist beyond any one member. And I would almost say that was the case with the runners too, except they, from what I understood, got wiped out by bandits afterward. Yeah, I like that fight. Not only the reformed convict gone protector type, but then the whole thing about the you know pissing his pants, passing out, and then waking up to see the zombie sheriff had smashed his skull, pushing his head through the bars, trying to get after him. Like that's just very visual. The way that was represented, really well done. Exlode asks, Adam Clegg released a photo of a fortress area. It had cement road blocks being used. I would have to go back through those photos and take a look. Was it being demonstrated in such a way that the players are actually dropping these cement roadblocks, or is it being represented in such a way that there was already this existing infrastructure and they're building up around it? Because I could see a lot of it being, we're going to be building up infrastructure that already exists. The most we can break down a house is the getting it down to the base leave, and then I guess it's just not a house anymore at that point, and then kind of goes away, or maybe it can be rebuilt in a different way at that point. Um, but yeah, cement roadblocks. If you're talking about those K rail sorts of things, yeah, those things are heavy as hell. Those things would be really tough to move. It would probably take, you know, some amount of ingenuity to be able to move those sorts of things. Of course, a 40-ton capstone exists atop an ancient temple in, I believe, India, and the only way they're able to get it there is building a dirt ramp a mile away and pushing this giant ass thing up there. The only way we could do that now, more or less, or the way that we would do it now, is by helicopter. Um, the idea that a large piece of anything, or large things, can't be moved around, it isn't that it's unreasonable. It's just, what kind of equipment would players actually need to be able to do that? Are we going to have forklifts, or is it going to be more of a making like a makeshift furniture dolly of some sort, or do you just have a bunch of chains around it? You have a bunch of people grab and stretch them and walk the thing into place. I mean, there's a lot of ways that I guess primitive ways to move heavy things, um, and I could see teamwork being a thing that's really important. That a lot of what you're able to do solo, you maybe can do a lot faster with a group, or maybe there's only some things you can do solo because you actually do need a group just to be able to deal with that much weight and building up the infrastructure in a reasonable time. This is the other thing. If you're halfway through building a house and night comes and a bunch of zombies are coming for you, you're not going to be able to finish the rest of that house. The sound of you banging away on those walls is it's going to be a big lure, basically. Alright. Hearing about the runners and crying baby dolls. Yeah, the crying baby dolls. And that was a really creepy thing to add to the idea that, the honing on the sound of babies crying. That's really weird, but it also really opens up a lot of opportunities because, is it human voice that they're actually detected, or is it just that specific frequency, that kind of middle of the band range, the human voice produces, that they're honing in on? Is it just something that's high pitched and droning? There's a lot of ways to make things that make a high pitched sound. Oh, it was that Tech died. I thought it was that they were all killed. I didn't remember that part. Of course, I only heard that once, and I was trying to write through a bunch of notes at the same time, so I could see how I could have missed that. Yeah, roadblocks placed on dirt in front of a entrance, like in a square shape. Yeah, that's the sort of thing. I actually don't know how heavy those things are. I'd imagine they're a few 100 pounds. So, if everybody is James Bond MacGyver and, super fit and super beefy and everything, I could see two or three people being able to kind of move one of those into place. Sandbags, yes. Spiked fences, yes. Definitely. Cars, just car parts. I mean, the French Revolution, what they were doing was just blocking the intersections because that was the easiest way to kind of shut things down and defeat state power. So, anything can be used to make barricades. It just depends on the amount of room you have and how reinforced you want it. And if you want it something that intelligent things can climb over or not. The entire heat system thing is going to be one of the biggest factors of challenges. Yeah, it is. And they've talked about the more you build up in an area and the more you do stuff in that area, the more it's going to be persisting that heat map. We're not actually going to see the heat map. We're not going to know that there's a hot spot here and a hot spot here, and we just happen to be right here in the middle. And if we go either direction, we're going towards zombies unless we go, what was it? I guess it'd be out this direction or out this direction. So, the hotspots are, and I don't know what the hotspot mechanics are actually. It's going to be, like levels of density. If it's going to be a larger globe that, all the interactions that happen within that globe increase the density of it, or if it's just going to be like a few epicenters that everything is kind of radiating around. Because the other thing is the heat maps, it's not just what players are doing, it's also what the rest of the environment is doing. Wolves hunting for something can cause a lot of noise. Maybe there's an area where there's a lot more nature going on, and nature itself is actually causing heat blips of its own. The idea they've said of a deer being chased by a wolf, being chased by a zombie, being chased by a player, is totally something that can happen. Wick, yes, zombies with perfect hearing. There's some ways that it can be explained as not necessarily, true hearing as so much as like sensory detection of reverberations in the ground and that sort of stuff. And that's, zombie senses in general, like how is their smell able to work at all? They've got to smell horrible. They're rotting. So how can they smell anything over themselves? I understand there's a point where the receptors will get saturated with, a certain smell, and it won't try to detect that smell anymore. But at the same time, the receptors can also get saturated to the point where your olfactory sense is just kind of shut down. It's really funny. I didn't see the last one, Flight. I was kind of busy yesterday and today. Probably end up watching it before the next episode, but didn't get a chance to watch it. I understand Matt Broom was on, so I definitely do want to watch it because he's totally awesome. And it was good that they were able to get a developer on this week, because when they don't have a developer on, it's not quite as entertaining. I mean, there's still a lot to talk about, but all right. But yeah, I agree, Wick. Like that, and that's something that I'm really hoping will come with the damage to locations. If you hit a zombie in the head, its senses should start to be broken up. Like if you hit it in the side of the head, it shouldn't be able to hear as well. If you hit it square in the face, smell should be impacted. Um, Vision potentially be impacted. There might be easier ways to affect vision. I doubt pepper spray is really going to bother a zombie that much, but if you have something that's spraying paint or whipped cream in their eyes, I don't know if a zombie knows to rub stuff out of their eyes or whatever, or if it's just gonna, be zombie walking around with the cream pie in his face, trying to use its other senses to detect. But after a hit or two in the head, it might not even have. Of course, the zombies are only going to take a few hits to take down. Then all those antics might not even be necessary. Depends on how tough they're actually going to be, and how tough they're going to be relative to the equipment we have. Yeah, no direction with no def on there. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they have fun anyway. Trying to get Jimmy Wisenhunt and Adam Clegg and all those folks up in here. It's just it's a really busy time for the project. The fact that Matt Broom was able to make some time there must have been a serious arrangement. But I'm going to see them all at E3 anyway, so it's whatever. I might even be able to get some interviews in. Yes, Xload. Hit him with the whipped cream, bro. Oh man. Actually, if there's a way you could get it to spoil before you deploy it, I'm sure spoiled whipped cream, you wouldn't want it on yourself because you'd smell horrible. But as some sort of a remote deployment system or something, rotting whipped cream would probably do a pretty good job to limit all of their senses. Wick, you want to have H1Z1 have options for zombie labor, zombies in a moat surrounding the house, zombies pulling a plow with a carrot on a stick lead, zombies on treadmills, also walking to generate power. Yes, 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 yes. I mean, if we can, break down all of the science behind what a zombie is and learn how we can manipulate them in that way. Definitely doing some of like the Walking Dead stuff where you've got the zombie on a leash, so that way you can walk through the zombies and they'll kind of ignore you, or having them just putting chains on a zombie and kind of releasing it out there. Other zombies might just hone in on the sound of those chains, and you've got yourself a perfect lure. The Fair Zombie Labor Act of 2016. Xload, I would say the cartoon Ugly Americans is the place I would look for any sort of zombie human relations, specifically zombie Americans, because that's a very big issue on that show. Siege enemy camps by catapulting live zombies into their ranks. Yes, 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 absolutely. Heck, you could just be flinging infected material at them in the days of the what's it called, the plagues, in Europe. That was actually a weapon they would use. They would just fling parts of corpses and bodies and stuff, and basically things that were infected over on the walls, knowing that they're going to be spreading pestilence upon the people. I mean, that could be a really nasty way to try to spread infection among a lot of players, is some sort of a zombie meat catapult. In the grand scheme of things, architecturally, catapults are not that difficult to design. It takes a lot of manpower and effort to be able to do it, and hilariously, manpower being also a pun, because allegedly there's not going to be female models available at the beginning of early access. But the idea that people are going to be making catapults. Hell, I might even try to make a catapult on day one and just fling stuff places just for the hell of it. Yeah, yeah, Wick. I mean, if you actually were able to further do stuff on that, like having a oh, I don't know, something that'll help dampen their impact, so they'll be able to get back up and keep clawing and biting around. Because I imagine zombies are kind of tough, but anything that you fling with a catapult that's going over a wall is going splat on the other side, and it might be pretty useless by that point, unless it actually lands straight on somebody, which seems like it'd have a low chance of happening, but it'd be a pretty hilarious way to kill someone. Zombie catapult. Yeah. Alright. By the way, folks, I do have a bot set up with the currency system. And it's a very, well, it's supposed to be a really inflated currency system, but I think it's only distributing 1 per person right now for some reason. It's supposed to be distributing 100 per person. So I might need to work on that. But anyway, so I mean, I've pretty much covered everything that I was going to talk about. If you folks have got any more questions or any more what? It's neurobotoxin. Yeah, okay, so it isn't working for everybody properly. I'll have to figure out why it's not doing it for everybody. People are supposed to be getting 1,000 a throw. Or not 1,000, excuse me, 100. You're supposed to be getting like 100 every 5 minutes. I got the idea from one of the other streamers, Sog, who he was talking about having an inflated currency where you just throw 100 coins down or whatever, and it's not a big deal. So I'm like, okay, let's actually go with something like that. Let's start the base value at 100 and go from there. Now currency, that's something funny, and I'm actually gonna pull back up Slick Rick Jarvis as an example here for a moment. We don't really, players having a unified currency. That should be a really interesting thing, because that's not just, is it going to be just on this server, or is it going to be on every server, and then how players actually work with it. It's a really interesting idea that a Rolex watch is not really worth any more or less than a PB&J sandwich. But at the same time, when I think about the potential for what that Rolex could be used for, I mean, gold is a great conductive metal. It's one of the few metals that's not really rejected by the human body. So, if you need like a dental implant or something, that's gold would make sense for it, or I guess piercings or something. I don't know. I don't think this is the kind of game where you can have a bunch of dudes walking around with their junk hanging around and nipple piercings or anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can't really take the character's clothes off, which makes sense because it's a survival game, not a body modeling simulator. So, what do you guys think about? Yeah, all of his priorities were backwards. Yeah, I gave him some power bars because he felt bad for him. The guy was assuming that the government or military or somebody was The government or military or somebody, I guess, was going to be taking care of things, and everything would all be back to normal. And then he also thought, oh well, yeah, I'm not stealing these things. I'm just, I'm just taking what other people left behind. That's it's just a really hilarious. The idea that he's got a what was it, a $2 million, $20 million mattress or whatever, that he was stuffing $100 bills in a mattress in his big old truck or whatever. That's just hilarious. Um, the amount of fuel that he's got to be burning just hauling all of that stuff around. Slick Rick is just wasting everybody's resources. Um, I could definitely see someone like him being somewhere in the game, or his truck being found somewhere, him dead nearby, and some group of players going in, ransacking all that gold and jewelry and everything, and just, making some sort of a weird, like, tribal society out of it or something, where you actually do use, like, gold and jewelry as your status symbol, and not necessarily, you wouldn't be using it as a currency so much as, like, you keep what you get and you use that to show off your status. Because I could see players like just going out in the world. If you see a bunch of people going out with a bunch of gold chains and stuff, that they're coming to kill you and take any valuable stuff that you've got. Um, could be a really interesting angle with it. Yeah, but I definitely. I think currency is going to be one of the most difficult things for anybody to try to establish, unless the basic unit of currency is like one food item, or one water, or a food and a water is one unit of currency. Um, could be a really interesting way to do it. Um, but that's basically between players. There's not going to be cash or credits or anything. It's going to be bartering. It's going to be 100% bartering, and I don't even know if there's actually going to be a bartering interface, or if it's just you put your stuff down, I put my stuff down. We'll walk over to each other's piles and not gank each other. Paramouse bottle caps for currency. It worked really well for Fallout, but weren't there also vending caps as a currency in Fallout? That's true, Wick. If it's gonna be if there's gonna be some sort of a currency, I definitely agree. It's got to be something people can't really create. Food wise, a currency. Yeah, H1Z1 Hunting Simulator 2014. You know it. There's definitely going to be a lot of people that they're just going to be out in the wild trying to be hunters. They'll make a bow and arrow or whatever on day one. They'll try to, maybe them and their buddies will make a little makeshift shelter or something that they'll use as their base of operations, and go from there. But yeah, you're right. If a player can make a farm, that's the thing though. A player could make a farm and dig a well, but the heat map you're going to generate from either of those things is going to be so monstrous that you're not going to be able to take out all of the zombies overwhelming you. To build up that sort of infrastructure, you're going to need people. You're going to need other hands on deck. So it's not going to be so simple as walk up to an area with the right materials, press a few buttons, and it's done. Um, but at the same time, that also it would open something up if you actually have 10 people that have a farm going, and they're using one unit of food and water as their bartering unit to trade with other people. Maybe other people have a different item that they can make a lot of. Maybe someone's maybe able to make crude gunpowder really easily, so they can um, yeah, And as I said, crude gunpowder, you say something about bullets there. Crude gunpowder, like 1 ounce of it, is their basic trading unit. Bullets as the currency was Metro 2033. Actually, no, Metro 2033, it was, is it 2033? Is it 2055? Whichever. Um, it's there were the crude bullets and the high quality bullets. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game, or maybe you're thinking of a different game actually. The crude bullets, they'd be plentiful, they'd be less accurate and do less damage, but you'd have a lot more of them to throw around. Versus the fine bullets, the military grade bullets, those ones were, what you're doing if you're really gonna make some serious barters, because those actually had some real heavy value to them. Flight. I think if you killed zombies within your farm, had a chance to infest your crops. If you don't, okay, so that's something that's still in flux, and that's actually you'll notice from Survivor Radio, they did not talk about one bit. I was very intently listening for it. They didn't talk about animals at all. So right now they still don't know, or if they know, they haven't revealed to us what animals are actually going to be and what their purpose is. So likewise, I could see the same with food. How easy it is for food to actually get infected like that. Um, I would imagine any amount of zombie matter that gets on a piece of food, especially something that's still growing, could potentially stay with it. And I don't know if it's something that can be cooked out or not. Um, but we really don't know beyond humans what the infection actually affects. We still don't even really know the source of it. We know there's something with Karama Pharmaceuticals, and we know something with their drug testing was going on at about the same time as the infections and the infestation began. But we can't really say specifically that one led to the other. We don't know. Maybe the virus is actually the thing that festered in the asylum in Poveglia, and the medicine that Kurama was making actually was a cure or a vaccine for it of some sort. Um, we really don't know. So that's definitely there's a lot of outliers there that they give us the idea that one thing's leads to the other, but it doesn't have to be. Wick, as of right now, the only thing we know is that someone being bitten or scratched or getting infectious material in their body causes them to be infected. What we don't know is if that affects everybody or if that only affects people who basically weren't affected by the Karama drugs that may have prevented them from being able to get zombified. So the in the story of Mama, or Krista was her name, I think. Let's see, where was that here? So in the story with Krista Phillips, when she drove away with her husband to escape, I guess he had gotten affected by the infection, because the zombie actually scratched her husband and he turned. We don't know if she actually got wounded at all, because the zombie did grab a hold of her, but allegedly didn't do any damage. Um, so if it's something that she might have not turned into a zombie either way, or maybe it really is just something where it's got to get into your system before it can actually affect you. Um, Jarhead 25 H1Z1 early access. Look for details around E3. That's June 10th through 12th. Coming up here pretty soon. XX Garippo 5XX. This is Dead Feature Rant. It is a talk show on H1Z1. Nightbot got you there. Try lowercase though. You must have said a lot of characters in, or a lot of words in caps there, because it doesn't get it for shorter statements. Flight. What was about the second interview in which the doctor was deemed a crackpot? He was allowed on the island while he was discovering the mutations. Okay, that was, I've got that on page 1 here. Here it is. That was Dr. Carver's research. He had written the book The Island of Death, which is the history of Pavaglia, talking about this rotten fruit that was used to treat the illnesses there. While he was doing the research there, the Italian government blocked his research. And the Italian government, the United States government, and Kurama Pharmaceuticals are all kind of working together on this. So he might have actually known, it sounds like he did know too much, and that's why he was shut down. Jarhead, when it releases, H1Z1 is going to be free, but when the early access comes around, I believe it's going to be a $20 access. H1Z1 Jane. No, that's my line right there. Yeah, I grew up on Z1 gameplay too. I wasn't able to really take any with me from my experience at SOE, but they have broadcast gameplay since then, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of it probably here pretty soon. Alright, I'm going to take one last question here, and then I got to wrap up because we're at the 2-hour mark, and YouTube doesn't really like to take videos more than 2 hours. So, Wick, in H1Z1 land, if an uninfected person dies, they do not rise as a zombie. So it is not Walking Dead rules. It isn't everybody's infected and it just takes over when you die. It is definitely you have to be infected for the infection to take hold. But I don't know with players if it's something that you can actually remedy, or if you're hit by a zombie or infected material, you're eventually going to be dead. But anyway, that's it for the show here. This has been Dead Feature Rant, episode 5. I am your host every week, Legendary Neurotoxin. Next week we'll probably have some guests. I don't know who, because I haven't really scheduled anybody yet. But it's definitely me going on. I also can't honestly say what the next episode is going to be about. These first few episodes were a few things that I had wanted to talk about for a while, and we got through them. So, oh yes, to answer the second half of your question there, no, I don't believe the zombie can bite someone post-death and zombify them. Cool. Flight 96, send me a Twitch message. In fact, anybody, if you want to be on Dead Feature Rant in the future, send me a Twitch message and we'll be able to figure something out. Cause I'd really love to get people in, and unlike Landmark, I don't really get as much interaction with a lot of the specific people. So I really need people to kind of come to me and let me know they want to be on the show here. So. Yeah, definitely send me a message if you want to be on here. I'll be the only requirement is Skype and a microphone. So yeah. His idea for a zombie head on a stick, yeah. Fun stuff. Wick, you want to be a necromancer, don't you? These are science zombies, they're not supernatural zombies. But anyway, alright, really wrapping up the show for serious this time. I am Legendary Neurotoxin. This is Dead Feature Rant, and I will see you next week. See you later.